Should Spurs fans be upset with Dejounte Murray? And is Keldon Johnson ready for the big seat?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio, TGIF. Hope everybody is getting ready for the weekend, winding down the work week, and we're going to wind it down with you right here on Locked On Spurs. What are we talking about today? Just briefly, touch on Dejounte Murray again and his recent comments. The overall, kind of to wind it up here, unless he pops off again, but to wind it down, just look back and ask, should Spurs fans really be mad at him for what he had to say about the team? And then dive into the main topic, which is Keldon Johnson. He got paid. Is he ready to play and lead the team like a big boy player who just got paid should? To help me, joining me on this episode of Locked On Spurs is my good friend over at San Antonio Sports Star. He is James Pledger, who is poolside, enjoying the hot weather, taking a cool dip. James, how you doing?
I am good, man. I am getting a tan. I'm about as brown as I've been in about a decade. So
do you
the positive to flipping to early mornings is I get to enjoy part of the late afternoon, and with that is obviously at least sunlight.
Do you tan or do you just burst into flames?
I actually tan. I used to be like golden brown when I was like a kid because I spent like all my time out at the lake or out at Flitterbond on the river, and I'm starting to get it back, man.
We're back, baby. You're getting that golden tan just so you can go to those pro-am bodybuilding shows so you can show off the muscles.
I used to get called basically people because of the way I dress, obviously, and then my skin color and my hair. People always used to think I was from California just because I gave off surfer vibe.
You do give off a Cali vibe. You do. It's faint, but it's definitely there. It's definitely there. But how's things going at the Star, man?
It's good, man. I don't know. I haven't checked Twitter or Instagram in like 5 minutes. So has Dejounte said anything new that I need to be concerned about?
Not as of now. It's definitely calmed down, but it's still a buzz with Spurs fans who are, I guess, kind of letting it go already. But we'll definitely see what happens when the season kicks up and that Atlanta game in San Antonio, how that's going to be received. Unless he pops off again. Wouldn't be surprised, though, if sometime during this offseason he pops off again because he had a mouthful to say, hey, you know what? Let's go and dive into that right now. And by the way, everybody, make sure to follow Pledger on Twitter at @IamPledger, and he'll tell you all about what's going on at San Antonio Sports Star later on the show. Let's go to, just like I said, just wind down this Dejounte Murray thing here. You had time to process it. I know you talked about it on halftime. You talked about it on the Blitz. Y'all really covered it. But if we look at what Dejounte had to say, not only in the IG post, but also in that Twitter post where he said, like, what was it, capital letters, I'm happier, I'm best, and all that stuff. Should Spurs fans ultimately be mad at him? Yeah, having fun. Yeah, but he used a lot of capital letters on that one. But ultimately, should Spurs fans be upset with what he had to say? I mean, is he wrong? I mean, is he lying? Does it take the Spurs years to get back to glory?
Okay, so this is, and I've taken a lot of time to digest what he said and be unemotional about it. And remember, every person's their own person, and the way that they do things doesn't fall in line with that of Tim, Tony, and Manu, who were very adverse to social media or being in the public limelight or wanting to be out in front and have their name in the headlines every 24 seconds and, surrounded by people and attention. They preferred to work in the shadows doing things themselves apart from everything. And I don't want to say all of today's athletes, but a lot of today's athletes are very brand aware. And yes, brand awareness comes with wins, and that's something else that the Spurs weren't doing, which probably also frustrated Dejounte, knowing that they were about to go into this full rebuild. They probably talked to him about that. It wouldn't shock me. But winning helps, but also being out in front in the social conscious through social media, through interviews, through all of these other things that they are allowed to do on other teams for the most part, allows them to build their own personal brand, which also, by the way, helps you in receiving all-star votes, and all-stars will lead to first-team All-NBAs, which lead to more max contracts. It is a self-perpetuating cycle that once you get on it, it helps so much with more money through advertisements. And I think when he says the system, that's the part of the system he's talking about. Is the Spurs are very closed off to everything, especially the media, and they don't really like their players doing interviews that aren't kind of set up through the Spurs. They don't like their players on social media and out vocally doing things, saying things that isn't, basically fundraising, basically doing charity work or something like that. If it's not that, they don't want you really out there in the pub. They don't want you on Twitch. It's hard to build a brand and promote yourself when there are so many restrictions on you. And today's NBA and just being an athlete in general, that social media is a huge part of it in terms of building your brand and maximizing your earning potential. I know they get paid a lot to do what they do within the Spurs organization, or just not the Spurs, but just playing basketball, playing in the NBA. They get paid a lot, and they get paid handsomely for what they do. But we all like to add our own earning potential, and whether that's through endorsements or whatever it may be in theirs, that's the best way to go about that. And I think the Spurs media blackout basically really it prevents players from doing that, which also, think about why the Spurs, outside of LaMarcus, who isn't a social media guy himself and wasn't kind of out in the public eye and didn't like being on Twitter and stuff, outside of LaMarcus Aldridge, that's kind of, unless you're a championship organization team and it's a person looking to possibly win a ring late in their career, it's kind of why they haven't landed big fish in free agency.
Right. Yeah. You look at it, what Dejounte said, especially the IG post. You talked about the system. Another thing he said about decades. It's going to take 15 years, according to Dejounte.
10 to 15, I think. Yeah.
Obviously, he's probably a disgruntled employee right now, but he's not wrong in the sense that this rebuild is going to take time. They can land the number one pick in this upcoming NBA draft 2023. That doesn't mean he's going to change the franchise overnight like Duncan did or Robinson did. That takes time. At least as of right now, there's not a Duncan, there's not a Robinson, there's not an Anthony Davis, there's not a LeBron James in this upcoming draft. There's going to be star potential. And let's not forget, too, the Spurs have a bunch of kids. They're going to try out a college team next season, James. It's going to be a college team.
Yeah, and what do kids mainly do?
Yeah, they get on social media.
They're very social media aware.
Yeah.
Look at what the NIL does now for college athletes. There are women that make more than college basketball players. The women in NIL deals are the second highest earning next to football players, mainly because of their social media and their platform that they have. And that's just part of the game these days. And kids are very aware today of what social media presence can bring to you and what it brings in terms of monetary value and endorsements and being able to be promoting yourself in such a way and how that benefits you financially. The Spurs kind of put clamps on you with that.
Yeah, and Dejounte, he signed that deal with New Balance. New Balance has Kawhi Leonard on their roster. They have other
Oh, God,
NBA
we're not
players on
comparing
there.
the two, are we?
No, I'm not leading up to that. I'm just showing you that, he has that deal in place, and now he's in Atlanta. It's like a 180 when it comes to just a market ability with the Atlanta market now. Atlanta has a bigger TV market than San Antonio does, has a bigger reach. It's just overall a better market for him. And, he could have been talking about that, about the system. He could have, we don't know. He didn't specify what system, either the player system they have in San Antonio, the overall culture
Correct
system.
me if I'm wrong. Dejounte was never in the HEB commercials, was he?
No, he never was. I look back, and either through my mental Rolodex or just my articles from my old home and at News 4 Sinclair to now at Ken's 5. I cannot think of one, even a local commercial he did in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Not even a local commercial.
Outside of Spurs brand things like HEB and
the car dealerships in San Antonio.
Or a car dealership, unless it's, I can't think of any Spur player outside of a national shoe deal like Tim Duncan and Adidas or Dejounte Murray and New Balance that has had an endorsement deal where they've been on TV that wasn't a Spurs sponsor.
Right, yeah. I mean, look, Thiago Splitter, Gary Neal, Danny Green, they all did local spots. Josh Primo just did one for Self. The selfie, the patch, which is a Spurs sponsor, yes. So
you don't see anything outside of the Spurs umbrella.
Yeah, you really don't. I mean, I think I told you this a few days ago. The last super marketable, I'm talking mega marketable player was David Robinson. It was David Robinson. I mean, people don't remember this. I know everybody says Robinson was low key. He was not low key at all. He was in movies. He was in TV shows. He was in national commercials, shaving cream, Nike, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. Mentioned movies. He was in an MC Hammer video. I mean, that's how marketable he was. And I think he was the last mega marketable player the Spurs had. And, they could have had another one with Timmy or Kawhi. Tony maybe got close. I think maybe Parker got super close. But
if he did things, I think it was back over in France, so it really didn't matter.
Yeah. But nevertheless, look. We'll wrap up this chat about Dejounte Murray, what he meant by system and fun and free in just a few seconds.
And this is why I don't blame him, though, is because if you do want to maximize your potential, San Antonio doesn't really give you the opportunity to do that.
All right, well, hold that thought, James, and when we get back, we're going to continue that chat and then dive into Keldon Johnson and if he's ready for the big boy seat next season. But before we do that, BetOnline, I want you to go there right now. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your sporting betting needs on all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. Look, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today. Go check out the betting lines on the Spurs trio of rookies if they have a shot at getting that NBA Rookie of the Year award next season. They have it there already. Use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. We're back with James Pledger right here on Locked On Spurs. He is with the San Antonio Sports Star. He is the co-host of the Saturday Morning Hangover, and he'll tell you a lot more what's going on at the Star later on the show. Let's go to wind down our chat about Dejounte Murray before we dive into KJ. So, look, if he wanted to go and look for his own and find a better spot for him to not only win on the court, but win off the court, you can't tell me James Pledger wouldn't be looking out for that. If you're a pro athlete, whether you're in the NBA or NFL or MLB, I mean, that's what the modern day athlete is all about, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And like I said, I don't find any, I'm not putting the blame that I'm seeing him and the beating he's taking on social media, because I kind of see his perspective. And if you remember in his press conference, he talked about, this is a mutual decision for them. And if that's the case, then there's nothing to really be upset about other than the fact that he feels that he is in a better position financially for himself, and Spurs fans don't like hearing that, apparently. And they want everybody to be like the Big Three, but the Big Three were such diverse and unique players in terms of who they were, what they stood for, what they cared about, and it's going to be very hard to recreate three personalities that are exactly like Tim, Tony, and Manu. And I would say it's probably close to impossible to find three personality types that are willing to, A, sacrifice, B, not want that attention, not want to build their brand as they're coming through the NBA to monetize their maximum earning potential. Like that's just rare to find a trait in a human being in general, much less three that are also supremely talented Hall of Fame type players that were also homegrown. I mean, it's like rolling 27 times in a row. It's damn near impossible.
I get why Spurs fans are upset. You just saw an all-star, technically an all-star get traded. The Spurs are about to enter a massive rebuild. I mean, this is not a rebuild on the fly. This is we're pulling the plug on everything and starting from scratch. There was technically, he did, point his direction, his anger, or his, let me not say anger, but he did finger point at the organization. Let's make that clear, Spurs fans. He never said he had a problem with the Spurs fan base. He made that abundantly clear. He said it's beyond basketball, that the system. So he never had an issue with Spurs fans. He just had, it seems to be,
had an issue with the organization either.
Right.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Like his beef isn't with anything. It's more like he seems frustrated that they're trying to do things the same way they did 20 years ago when the world has changed, the NBA has changed. Everything's changed, and it feels like the Spurs don't want to evolve with that change.
Right, and should he may have taken the high road to avoid all this mess and just keep it to himself? Maybe he should have done that. But he did thank the Spurs, whether it be in the Atlanta Hawks press conference, whether it be in the Instagram post where he thanked the Spurs. So he did his part, but this just feels like a breakup, just like any normal breakup you have with your partner. You're going to break up and then you're going to be like, you know what? Wait a minute here. And you might spout off something. And I think that's what happened. But look, things are calming down. I think Spurs fans are.
He's like the girl that broke up with her dude. That everything seemed cool, but then she had time to think about it. And I was like, you never let me go out with my friends on Friday nights because you were scared I was going to be stepping out on you.
Well,
that's not right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it's a good segue into our next topic, which is Keldon Johnson and the big boy seat. DJ, he gets traded. The Spurs didn't want to offer. Well, let me rephrase that. We don't know if they didn't want to offer him anything. A big deal didn't land on DJ's lap before he left. Keldon gets the big deal. 4-year, $80 million, $20 a year. But that's a nice extension. We'll just leave it as that. His future's, we thought Derek White was going to be a Spur for life when he got his extension. We thought Dejounte was going to be a Spur for life, but that certainly didn't happen. But as of right now, he is the highest paid Spur. As of right now, he seems to be the biggest building block the Spurs are going to use in this rebuild. And with the big payday comes bigger responsibility and a bigger spotlight. Now, James, hold that thought. When we get back, we're going to answer the question, is Keldon Johnson ready for the big boy seat? We're back with James Pleasure right here on Locked On Spurs. He's with San Antonio Sports Star, and hang on tight. He's going to tell you everything and more about why you need to be checking in at the Star and all their. They got tons of shows. Trust me, you need sports covered. They have it down. So let's answer the big question: is KJ ready for the big boy seat? Is he the player the Spurs are going to look at next season to be the team leader?
Yeah, 4 years, $80 million, and when you look closer at it, according to reports, it's more like 4 years, $76 million,
Okay.
$18.5 million a year, with $1.5 million attainable through incentives that are what was described as going to be difficult to achieve. So
right.
that's right in line with what Dejounte and Derek got, if I'm not mistaken. When you're talking about 4 years, $70+ million range.
Right. Well, so the big question is he ready for the big boy seat? Because the spotlight is going to be on him, just like it was on Derek. How many times did you hammer on him like, hey, you're the highest paid Spur, step up? Same thing for Dejounte.
Sure.
Yeah, you want this leadership mantle. Dejounte, where were you? In the play-in game, where were you disappeared? Now it's KJ. And look, kudos to him. Statistically, every month last season, offensively, he got better. His points per game increased little by little each and every month. His three-point shot up tremendously. Rebounding, assist, he was slowly turning the corner as the season went on and becoming a bigger and better player. But he still had DJ next to him, and a lot of the offense and the defense ran through Dejounte. Dejounte's gone now.
Yep.
Is KJ enough? I mean, look, they're not projected to win a lot of wins, but
23.5.
Yeah, 23.5. By the way, the line moved up a little bit. It's now 24.5 now. It went up by 1.
Ooh.
Yeah, it went up by 1. That's the latest. But when you think leader, do you think Keldon Johnson?
Sure. I think he's a quiet leader. I think he's an emotional leader on the court. You see it when he kind of gets that scream and flex when he dunks or a big play. So you can kind of see it from him. But at the same time, I do believe, look, that's why Greg Popovich took Keldon to the USA Olympics. Remember, Derek White was part of the Olympic team prior to everything, the world basketball and everything. He had him on basically all of the rosters going forward. But Keldon's the first Spur to actually make the Olympic team and get that opportunity to go. And he won a gold medal this past year. And I think while he played a small role, I think he was there because Pop was kind of grooming him. Look, be around all of these alphas, all of these, guys that are number ones on their team. Take in how they do things while they're here. Learn from them. Learn their craft. Learn the work they put in. Learn what they do behind the scenes. Learn what they do on the court. Learn how they talk to people. Learn how they interact with people. Learn how they get the best out of their teammates and get the best out of themselves in situations. I think that was kind of Pop bringing him along, having him learn from all of these other greats that were on this roster to kind of put him in a position to where he is now, where he's going to be the guy. And if you look, he went from single-digit points, jumped up to over 12 points a game the year before, jumped up from 12 to 17 this past year, jumped his three-point percentage up to around 40% this past year. And with Dejounte gone, that's more shots for him. So I could easily see him making another jump to 22 points a game area. And if he continues to shoot threes at that clip, that's going to be extremely beneficial. He's going to have other things to work on. But if you look at his career with the Spurs, every offseason he's gone in, much like Kawhi Leonard did. He figured something out. He got in the lab. He worked on that one thing. And the next season, that one thing was that much better. And he took a jump every single year, it felt like. And Keldon's doing something very similar. He's taking a jump. He's working on a certain thing. Last offseason, it was three-point shooting. I think he's going to be working on probably either his mid-range or his ball handling and the offseason and take that part of his game to the next level. Keldon has the opportunity, I think, to really take that step and be a leader on the team. The one thing I have a concern with is there's no true point guard on this team. Mm-hmm. So is he going to have difficulty getting his shots if he can't initiate his own offense for himself? You know what I'm saying? If they have a tough time getting him the ball in certain situations, because there's not a veteran point guard or a true point guard on this roster.
Right, and that's where I think Devin is really going to have to be his sidekick, or they're going to have to really play off one another, because teams are likely going to double team KJ. You can see it coming already now, and that's where Devin has to be that second option, that a threat on the court for San Antonio. But you're right. I mean, the point guard spot is in question right now. Is it Primo? Is it Trey Jones? Is it Blake Wesley? Is it somebody else? Is going to be by committee? It is positionless basketball nowadays. You know, wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, Zach Collins dribbling up the ball sometime. I mean, that's how ridiculously positionless basketball is nowadays. But yeah, I mean, as far as KJ, I think he's ready to up his game. I think he's ready to take on that mantle. I just want to know if he's ready. I just want to know if he's ready to be that vocal leader that we saw Dejounte was, that we saw that, that Dejounte embodied. He was getting it last season. He definitely was it. He was vocal. He was on the court vocal. You saw him on the court, saw him on the bench. Can Keldon do that? I think he can, but I think he might be that lead by example, the quiet kind of leader.
Which is okay.
Which is fine. Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Tim wasn't
that's
your
fine.
Vocal leader on the court or anything else, but he led by example, and he led by what he did kind of off the court. Because if you hear stories about Tim Duncan, like, it was kind of the things he did off the court. He was a funny guy. Like, we never really got to see it, but the paper cup game that they played on the bench, like, all of these things that Tim brought that kind of brought the team closer together, playing, you know, video games and stuff, and bringing that culture into the background. Like, those were things that he did that helped kind of unite the team in his own way of leading and building a camaraderie. It wasn't vocal on the court, but it was much bigger than any of us truly understood, because we didn't see it.
Absolutely, yeah. But KJ, if anything, he's gonna get really adjusted to is the spotlight now. I'm pretty sure you guys at the Star are gonna give him the business when he does bad, and give him praise when he does good. That just comes with the territory now.
Started last year, coming off that Olympic team. Both Rudy and Jason were extremely hard on Keldon because of the expectations coming off of that Olympic run, and it's hard to be mad at them for that, because there are expectations, and while he's growing, and you got to understand that he's still growing, and that's going to be part of the growth, is learning how to deal with the expectations that come with being the face of a franchise.
What is he, like 22, 23 years old? He can't be more than that, right?
Yeah, he's
close to 22,
young.
23.
So
yeah, he's still young.
Maybe turns 23 before the end of the year. Right.
So Keldon, he's very jolly. Win or loss, you've seen him post game. He's very happy. If it's a loss, he eats the loss, and he just says, "Hey, moving on." And he has a big smile, and he says, "Have a blessed day, everybody." And he's the exact same guy, win or loss, laughing, joking, eating losses, eating wins, and moving on. You know, Will Popovich.
Not a bad thing, because
no, it's not. It's not. But
actually, be a really good thing in terms of not letting losses get you and affect you mentally, in terms of putting you in a slump or a bad mood. Like, people equate being mad after losses with that guy really wants it, but there's something to be said about an even kill guy that can kind of, especially if he's your leader, keep the team from falling into a funk after multiple losses, or after a small losing streak, or even a long losing streak, and being able to keep the team afloat mentally by bringing a different energy than negative energy around, which can hopefully spread through the team and allow them to bounce back and not dwell on things. I mean, just because he doesn't let the loss affect him visually doesn't mean it doesn't bother him.
He got paid like a big boy. We're going to see if Keldon can step up and play like a big boy next season. He is our highest paid player and likely will be the focal point for the Spurs in this rebuild moving forward. I'm not calling him franchise, but he's definitely a big piece. They paid him nearly like a franchise guy, but we'll see if he can step up.
He is the franchise guy.
Right.
You have to equate A, your best player, B, your highest paid player, and C, the player that has the most potential still as the face of the franchise, because outside of that, you don't have one. And he is definitely that right now. He is the face of the Spurs franchise. Whether he remains the face of the franchise as this rebuild continues, that remains to be seen. But as of right this minute, going into the 22-23 season, there is no doubt in my mind Keldon Johnson is the face of the Spurs franchise.
I feel like you're going to be giving a PSA to Spurs fans in a bit and saying, maybe you should invest in the Keldon Johnson jersey quite yet. Maybe don't do that simply because we saw this with Dejounte. We saw this with Derek. Get paid big bucks, then they're gone. Who knows if Keldon could be a part of that rebuild. And now that the new numbers came out as far as his contract is structured, it's front loaded and not back loaded. So it'll be a nice little trading chip down the road of the Spurs feel that they still need to continue the rebuild. And look at Keldon, everybody. Look how much he's grown in the last 2-3 years. Would you look at that? Who wants him? Who wants him?
Sure.
Let the bidding begin.
Obviously, a potential outcome with this, but you have to just take this as it goes. When you're talking about a team that is in a transition period like the Spurs are right now, going from the championship era to trying to figure out how to hold on to that with LaMarcus and DeMar, and then seeing if this young group could take that step this next year, this past season, to taking it to the studs this year. Like, this is a point of transition that the Spurs haven't seen in over 25 years. So just be patient, I would say, and let it unfold. Like, if Keldon's a part of this, he will prove that he's a part of this. If he's another chip to further expedite this rebuild, which could help them possibly rebound even faster, then that's okay too. But just take things as they come right now, because you don't want to put the cart before the horse. Otherwise, you end up spinning your wheels in place for over 25 years like the Sacramento Kings seemingly have.
He is James Pledger with San Antonio Sports Star. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at @IamPledger. And now's the time he's going to just brag all about the San Antonio Sports Star and why you should be listening in.
Well, the Star's got it going on. That's why. Of course, you've got R&R in the morning with Rob Thompson, Rudy J, and myself, weekdays from 7 to 10. After that, we've got Michael Jimenez in halftime from noon to 2, and The Blitz with Joe Reinagel and Jason Minix from 4 to 7 every weekday as we bring you all the latest when it comes to the Spurs, the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys, the NBA, big topics around college sports, Texas A&M and Texas, the SEC. Like, it's all going down at the Star. Then, of course, Saturday, you've got myself and Jack Thompson on the Saturday Morning Hangover every Saturday from 7 to 9. And it's loaded. We've got you covered. We're going to be talking sports all the time, and the meta is making its return with myself and Katie Barber very soon as well. So there are a lot of things at the Star to get you going, including esports and gaming. We've got you covered, and, of course, that nerd talk on the meta as well.
Well, I'm pretty sure you have a lot to talk about on the meta with SDCC happening right now as we speak.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. I mean, already the Dungeons and Dragons trailer dropped. Some stills of Ahsoka came out already. So, yeah, Yep, a lot of good stuff going on. By the way, one more point about what Dejounte said. I do disagree with him. I don't think it'll take 15 years for the Spurs to at least become a playoff team.
I don't think it will either.
Yeah, I disagree with him on that.
In the sense that it could, if they continue this trying to look for the same type of players that Tim, Tony, and Manu were. Like, I can see what he means in terms of that's just not the way people are wired nowadays, and it's hard to find people wired that way nowadays. You have to evolve and change along with, the times, and it feels like the Spurs are very adverse to doing that right now. And you just got to be careful because it's really easy when you're winning championships and have three players that are so selfless to do something like that versus trying to recreate something that may have been a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence.
Right, yeah. And, sooner or later, they'll have to learn their lesson because who knows if Keldon's the next one to say, you know what, I don't think we're going to re-sign. And this pattern continues. And they say, like, wait a minute, it's like I get it to a breakup. Are you dumping me because it's me or is it you kind of thing? Like you're gonna have to one day look at that and be like, oh, the Spurs gonna be like, wait a minute, it's a common thread here. It's more me.
I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying he's right. I'm just saying I see his side of things. And with today's modern athlete, whether you like it or don't, they are very, very savvy when it comes to making money off the court nowadays, and it starts at a very early age for them, and to basically take that away from certain players is going to be very hard to find people that are going to be willing to sacrifice their earning potential.
Absolutely. Hey, before we close out, which NFL stars move the betting line the most? Starting July 18th, Locked On gives you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from odds makers at BetOnline. Available July 18th on Locked On NFL, wherever you get podcasts, and on YouTube. And as always, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. We're going to be trickling down, probably starting next week. It won't be Monday through Friday. Be lucky if we get two. And James, we're in the doldrums of the NBA season now. We're in it. Off season, that is.
Good.
Yeah, it's all good. We'll try.
At some point, we'll get an emergency lockdown, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. So just a heads up now, everybody. This lockdown will probably start pumping the brakes soon. Now, for your second listen, get up to date on all the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day. We're Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA, your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. And subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get favorite podcasts, including YouTube, Ken's 5 YouTube page, and now the Ken's 5 Plus app. Everybody's listening to you right now who has the Ken's 5 Plus app. James, say hi to them.
Ken's 5 Plus subscribers. Jeff kind of faded out there for a second. I didn't catch that.
It's all good. It's all good. As long as you say hello to them. I'm saying hello to them, and you should download the Ken's 5 Plus app right now. So for James Pledger, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.
Taking shots at the enemy. I'm gonna make it to the top, leave a legacy. If I got something to say, you better let me speak. Turn it up.